Hi, this is a re-upload of the original That One Groomer named Caleb video. The reason why being it was taken down by YouTube. So, I've redubbed and edited the entire video so it's safer and more family friendly. You should still watch the video because I added more things that happened recently. Thank you for watching again. Before this video starts, I want you to ask yourself something. What would you do if someone you trusted slowly manipulated you, pressured you into inappropriate situations, and then tried to rewrite the story so they look like the victim? Because that's exactly what happened here. This video is about a small animator named Caleb, or known as ThatOneCaleb, and the things that happened during his 2-year relationship with Cherry are things people deserve to know about. Let's start from the beginning. Caleb, also known as ThatOneCaleb, is a small animator on YouTube. He has under 600 subscribers and makes short animations with his characters, usually called the Caleb's Crew. Caleb was also a part of a group called the Memer Squad, which was made by Tasty Sugar, or known as Cherry. From November 11, 2024 to February 6, 2026, Caleb and Cherry were in a relationship that lasted about 2 years. During that time, several disturbing behaviors occurred, including grooming, manipulation, harassment, and sharing explicit content. Caleb took advantage of Cherry's hypersexuality and used it for his own personal pleasures, and when the truth was out, he used her hypersexuality against her. The goal of this video was to not encourage harassment. The purpose is to explain what has happened, show the timeline of events, and warn others about Caleb and what he has done. At the beginning of the relationship, Caleb began introducing inappropriate and mature topics into conversations with Cherry. This included requesting for NSFW artwork, eventually asking Cherry to send photos of herself, and on top of that, Caleb also sent images of his own genitals. This type of behavior is often associated with grooming. Grooming is when someone slowly introduces an inappropriate behavior into a relationship in order to normalize it and make the other person feel like it's acceptable. Instead of immediately asking for something extreme, the person gradually escalates the situation over time. Caleb has slowly removed boundaries. What might start as a small joke or artwork can turn into pleasure for explicit photos or for inappropriate conversations. Another issue with Caleb is, according to conversations at the aftermath of some voice calls, Caleb would often pleasure himself during voice calls with Cherry. Although there are no recordings of this happening, the messages following these calls strongly support this behavior occurred. One particular disturbing example happened when Cherry was venting and crying during a voice call. While Cherry was crying and talking about her personal problems, Caleb was reportedly pleasuring himself during that call, and after he finished, he had left the call. This kind of behavior is extremely inappropriate and shows a lack of respect for the other person's emotional state. While someone is crying and seeking support, responding with an inappropriate behavior instead of empathy is deeply harmful. It turns a moment of vulnerability into a situation where the victim is unknowingly being used.
One thing that I'd like to mention is the conversation here does turn into a different topic, but it did originate from said call.
Caleb also used several manipulation tactics throughout the relationship to have Cherry wrapped around his finger. Understanding these tactics is important because they are commonly used in unhealthy or abusive relationships. Love bombing. Love bombing is when someone overwhelms another person with affection, praise, and attention. On the outside, it may feel flattering or exciting, but the underlying intention is often to create emotional dependency on the other person. Whilst the victim forces an attachment, the manipulator can slowly alter their behavior in making demands. Obligation trap. An obligation trap happens when someone makes the other person feel like they owe them something. For example, if someone gives them attention, affection, or personal content first, they may act as though the other person is obligated to give them something in return. This creates pressure and guilt, even if the victim originally didn't want to participate. Coercion. Coercion means pressuring someone into doing something that they are uncomfortable with. This pressure may not always be obvious. It can involve guilt, emotional manipulation, or making the victim feel like they're responsible for the other person's feelings. Over time, coercion can make someone feel like they have no real choice but to comply. In addition to the grooming, manipulation, Caleb has also displayed other problematic behaviors. He used offensive slurs, made disturbing jokes about SA, created explicit artwork involving characters belonging to both himself and Cherry. He would often say slurs, especially the N-word. He stated that he was black, despite the fact that he was born in Puerto Rico. Another thing that I would like to mention is, I'm not talking about Puerto Ricans as a whole. I'm only talking about Caleb. We were close friends, so we got the chance to see his face, and from what it looks like, he doesn't appear black. That's what I was referring to. He also pressured Cherry to draw his characters in inappropriate situations. He would even share his own NSFW art. His main female OC, Rosa, was called two things I don't want to mention, and he mentioned that she did it as a job, but that's still putting his characters in explicit topics. Most of the grape jokes occurred in voice calls, which means there are no direct recording of them. One example involves an adult theme roleplay where Caleb's IRL character essayed Cherry's IRL character. The original Discord channel where this roleplay took place was later deleted. Deleting the channel removes direct record of this event, which makes it harder to verify, but does raise questions why the content was removed. After the breakup, Caleb has continued to do many uncomfortable things. He first made fake allegations about her with faked ad messages that were taken out of context. He would also try dodging the allegations against him by blocking the person who confronted him or shifting the blame onto something else. Every screenshot Caleb has shared didn't have the timestamps where it usually is. We can suspect that he is faking messages. Other images he might have shown might not also be real, so it's best to take it with a grain of salt. Caleb also stalked Lazy/Red Rants, or known as Max's TikTok account, during and after his relationship with Cherry. After he was confronted about the grooming situation by Max, he proceeded to block him. March 1st, 2026. After the breakup, Caleb began sharing messages with his friend in order to defend himself. However, several of these messages appeared to be misleading or incomplete. In one example, Caleb shared a screenshot showing Cherry saying how she liked how down bad he was, while Caleb replied that he was too needy and couldn't control it. At first glance, this may look like a mutual conversation. However, context matters. By this point, the relationship has already lasted 7 months. Victims of grooming often mirror the tone of their manipulator in order to maintain affection or to avoid conflict. Caleb states that he can't control it, also shifts responsibility away from himself, and places emotional pressure onto Cherry to accommodate his behavior. Another screenshot shows Caleb saying, "Babe, you should stop for your safety. I know I'm sexy, but you have to stop." Even though this message is framed as concern, the statement still centers Caleb by emphasizing his own desirability. Cherry responds by saying, "Why do you think I hate me?" This response shows shame and low self-worth, which are common in emotional effects in manipulated relationships. In another conversation with a friend named Muggy, Caleb claims that he has never asked for NSFW art, and that the drawings were only for jokes or practice. However, available evidence shows that Caleb was the one who originally began requesting inappropriate artwork, Cherry following his lead over time. This gradual escalation is a common pattern in grooming, which the manipulator slowly pushes boundaries further and further. In another conversation with Cherry, Caleb says, "What we did in general was wrong." By saying what we did, Caleb frames the situation as if both people were equally responsible. However, then he says that his past actions do not define him. This shows that he acknowledges something inappropriate happened, but then he admits to minimize it or to share the blame. He also tries shifting the blame towards Cherry's artwork involving two characters kissing. Compared to the explicit content Caleb has created or requested, this example is relatively minor. More messages appeared a few days later. In one conversation with Brad, Caleb says, "She started it, I was new to it." However, evidence suggests that Caleb was the one who introduced the inappropriate behavior first. Even if he claims to have been inexperienced, that does not change the fact that he has intended these interactions. In another's message, Caleb says, "Not all my requests are weird." This statement indirectly acknowledges some of his requests were inappropriate. Brad even responds by pointing out none of the requests should have been weird in the first place. In another screenshot, Caleb says that it isn't that easy, okay? Brad responds by the action Caleb was avoiding would literally take one click of a button. This suggests Caleb may have exaggerated the difficulty in order to avoid taking accountability. One personal experience I would like to share is on March 10th. He would reach out to me and ask him to listen to him. While we were talking, Caleb kept changing his goal. He first wanted us just to talk, then later wanting an apology, wanting us to remove his characters even though he had given them to Cherry, wanting to talk to Cherry herself, and then finally admitting what he has done. Also, during our chat, Caleb kept acting immature, yet being a changed man. In conclusion, when looking at the full timeline, a pattern becomes clear. Caleb introduced inappropriate behaviors into the relationship, using Cherry's hypersexuality as a way to normalize explicit content, used manipulation tactics to maintain control, and later attempted to shift the blame after the breakup. The purpose of this video was not to harass. The purpose is to inform people about these behaviors so they can recognize warning signs and protect themselves. Make sure to check out everyone else's YouTube videos about the situation so you can get a better grasp of everyone's personal experience. You can also check the Google Doc for a more in-depth look on the situation. We added every single evidence we have in said Google Doc. So Caleb, if none of this is true, then ask yourself one question. Why does every piece of evidence point back to you? Okay, this is the part that you've been waiting for. Just a few hours after my video was taken down, Caleb made a response. Funny how he chose to make a response right after the main source of information was gone from the internet. Before we get into his post, there's some things I would like to point out. Caleb privated his TikTok and Instagram, deleted most of his videos, and basically disappeared. If you're truly in the right, why are you trying to hide? He also tried reaching out to Cherry multiple times to talk things out and take accountability, while at the same time denying every claim and expecting people to take his word. He has used multiple alternate accounts to contact her. Now let's actually look at his response, because this is where things start to fall apart. Caleb has told completely different versions of the same story. His first statement describes himself as concerned, new to everything, and unsure of what's happening. He admits he has participated, says he could have said no, and even takes partial accountability. But in his more recent statement, the story changes. Now suddenly, Cherry's the one responsible for everything. He claims that she started it, pushed it, and even go as far as calling her the problem entirely. So which one is it? Because you can't say I take responsibility for my actions, and then later say you caused more of a mess than I did. That's not accountability, that's called shifting the blame. And it doesn't stop there. He says I didn't do such things, but then admits there were rare occasions where it did. So like, which is it? It did not happen, or it did happen sometimes? Because admitting it happened all the time already confirms the boundary-crossing behavior existed by his own words. He also claims he didn't know about anything, but not knowing the term doesn't change the behavior. You don't need to know the word for something to still engage in it. The pattern still matters more than the label. Then there's the classic argument, she started it. This is just blame shifting. Even if another person participates, that doesn't remove the responsibility for continuing or escalating the behavior. For what makes it worse, he contradicts himself by saying, even if these were rare occasions, it doesn't make it okay. Exactly. So why are you using it as a defense? He also repeatedly claims that he was uncomfortable. But if that was consistently true, the behavior would have stopped. Boundaries would have been set, but instead, by his own admission, these interactions continued for months. We even have screenshots of Cherry showing her discomfort instead of Caleb, whilst Caleb was pushing the inappropriate behaviors. And then, there's one of the biggest contradictions. He says that he was cornered into doing these things, but he also chose to give in and could have stopped at any time. Those two things don't line up. You can't completely be forced into something, at the same time say you had the ability to stop but didn't. He also tried to flip the narrative completely by saying that he was the one who's being manipulated. But again, he admits that he has participated and doesn't provide any clear proof that he was actually forced. So which is it? Were you forced, or were you the one forcing her? Okay, I'm editing the video. One thing that I would like to mention is the fact that Caleb changes his goal. In his community post, he said he wants closure into he said he's a changed and better person. But in the comment, the recent one, he said he wants to clear his name and something. Why are you changing your goal? I thought, this just proves my point of him changing his story so he looks like the victim. He also brings up his mental state. While this can be serious, it still doesn't disprove his original concerns. This is not evidence, this is shifting focus. Then he says that he has tried explaining, but got blocked. But being blocked doesn't mean you're right. It can mean that people were uncomfortable or that the trust was already broken. And that's worth noting. He also blocked people himself. And finally, one of the biggest inconsistencies. He says that he didn't do those things, but still apologizes for them. A real defense is usually one or the other, a clear denial or a full accountability, not both at the same time. And while you put all this together, a pattern starts to show: denial, partial admission, blame shifting, minimization, and then later, apology. Over and over again, the story keeps changing, but the contradictions stay the same. So again, the question is simple. You say all of this is her fault, so why does the evidence tell a different story than yours?